So in this video course, we're going to cover true length axonometrics, meaning that when you make 2D your axon in Rhino, you will get the true length measurements. And so we're going to do an exploded axonometric in Rhino, and I'm going to show you the workflow of how to show different types of exploded axonometrics, both from a 2D standpoint and from a rendered exploded axonometric option as well. So let's just go ahead and get started. So in our last video course, this model that you see here, we modeled a residential rain screen system with an internal gutter or a hidden gutter with a wood slat facade. And in this course, we're going to cover how to do true length axonometrics. So there's a lot of different terminologies that float around between obliques and isometrics and axonometrics. I'm not going to go into detail about that. I'm just going to show how you produce a true length axonometric because currently in Rhino, Rhino uses the terminology isometric, which is absolutely fine. There's different types of isometrics, but typically what most isometrics do, they foreshorten the length of the actual drawing. So for example, if we take this little rectangular box here, right? And I duplicate it. And if right now I'm in perspective view, or actually I'm in parallel view. So if you go to your properties, the rainbow circle properties, you go to projection, I'm in parallel, right? So that means that these lines here are parallel with each other, right? And these lines here are parallel with each other. But when I make 2D this object right now, so I do make 2D and I do OK. And if I go here and I actually dimension and measure this object, right? So if I do dim, or dim, or let me do dim aligned, and I go from here to here, right? That says 7 foot, 7.22 feet, right? If I go here and actually measure this object right now, it's going to be longer than that. It's going to be 10 foot 1.5 inches. You see, because when you do an isometric, it's a foreshortened projection of the object, but there are drawings that show the true length. And personally, I actually find them super helpful when you're doing very detailed drawings that you want to show three-dimensionally and show the true length of the measurements. It's actually very helpful in product design or in furniture design, where you're showing an actual object and you want to give them a three-dimensional view of it. And so what we can do here in Rhino to get the true length and give it this three-dimensional quality is we're going to do it in top view. And it's just two commands. We're just going to rotate it and shear it, and that's it. So let me actually keep this here for reference so you can see the difference. So again, this is the parallel isometric view in Rhino. And I'm going to show you another method where you can get the true length and still have like this three-dimensional drawing quality to it. So we're going to go here, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to duplicate this. And so we're going to duplicate this, and then from here, we're going to rotate it 45 degrees, right? Right, so now it's rotated 45. And then we're going to select it. I'm going to shear it. And then I'm going to go on my right side view, and I'm going to click on the very top and go straight down and click here. It can be arbitrary. Just make sure you go from above and below the model. And then my shear angle, I'm going to do negative 45 degrees and press enter. Okay. And so now it's right here. So do you see this object here? I'm going to make it 2D. So just to emphasize, right now I am in top view. This looks like a three-dimensional object, but it's actually in top view. If I look at it in perspective, it's like super distorted, you see? So that's why it's so important to make duplicates of these, whether it's like a floor plan or a diagram. You want to make a duplicate from the original model because it distorts the actual physical model in perspective view. So you want to make 2D in top view. So make 2D and then just do OK, right? And so if I go here, and let me just do it side by side right here. Right now, if I do dim aligned and I go from here to here, and if I measure this, right, the actual true object from here to here, oops, distance. You see 10 foot 1.5, and this is basically the exact same thing in decimal form. If I do dim aligned, from here to here, and if I do distance from here to here, 2 for 3 and 3. It's the exact same distance basically. And so this is again great if you want to show things to scale and have like this three-dimensional quality to it in this axis and this axis. And basically what this is, it's basically like your floor plan or any object that's rotated, right? So it's like you draw like a whatever you like a plan, and then you rotate it, right? And then you are taking the true length of it in the Z axis, for example, and in the Y axis and drawing it at angles. That's what you're doing. And that's what this is representing. So it's super important to understand this. So what we're going to do is we're going to do an exploded axonometric of this drawing we made in our last video course. And we're going to make an exploded axonometric at true length. And we're going to do maybe a 2D version of it of just line work, and then do a version of it with maybe a render overlay. So let's just go ahead and get started. The first thing I'm going to do is, again, super important, I'm going to make a duplicate of this. Okay, that's number one. It's just super important to do this. And number two is I'm going to go ahead and because I don't like this, I want this facing this way. I'm just going to rotate it 90 degrees for now, like that. Very good. Or excuse me, rotate it 180. I just for my own sake, I just want this like looking at me when I'm modeling this from this axis. And then I'm going to select it. Then I'm going to go here. Okay, so again, I want to rotate it 45. Right? So that's step number one. Then I'm going to shear it. Okay. I'm going to go here on the right view and shear -45. There you go. So this is it right now. Again, if I look at this in perspective view, it's going to look super distorted. So that's it. This is done. Like you can't model this unless you want to re-shear it. That's why you always make a duplicate over here. Okay. And okay, now I'm actually going to make a duplicate of this because you're going to see why later on in the video. So now we have a true axon right here. We're going to leave that alone. And now we're going to work with this. And so let's just start, pulling things up. And I think the anchoring point is going to be the structure. The structure is going to stay and everything is going to be pulled off from it, right? So I can go ahead, I'll take this, just pull that up. And I might fast forward through this if it is, if I feel like it's being taken a little too long. Okay, so I finished expanding all of the layers here. And just to show you my method, I typically have like a guiding line that I can always use. So I'll show you just a quick example. I mean, I definitely wanted to fast forward because you don't need to see me expand all of these, but just to show you the method, you just want to have like some kind of guiding line that you can use for everything in this orientation. So like I have this 45-degree line, and then I just start moving things across this line, so I'll just move things across line like that, and I'll take, for example, like this element here and just move it across this line. And you don't want to have like overlap. You want to have almost like equal spacing. And that's basically it. And you just keep expanding things across. And if you need to shift things over and over, just move this, keep moving it across like that, So that's basically how I achieve this. Let me just undo that because I actually need this. Okay, so now after you expand all of your elements, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to make 2D. So I'm going to go ahead and make 2D. And I don't want my hidden lines. I don't want seeing silhouettes because I can do that in Illustrator very easily. And then everything else is fine. Make sure maintain source layers is checked. And you're obviously going to be doing it from the current view. So just do OK. Okay, great. So it took a while to do it, but it made 2D. Excellent. And this is exactly what we want to see here. Beautiful. This looks fantastic. And so I also want to make 2D this axonometric because we're going to use this as like a reference. You can use this for a lot of things. Like you can use this as a diagram. Like this whole thing can be like this nice dashed dotted diagram. So it shows you the part to whole assembly. It's super clean and it helps people understand how things come together from a whole to a part. So that's why I made a duplicate of the axonometric before it exploded because I want to take this one. Oops, excuse me. I want to take this one here and I also want to make this 2D. Again, if it takes too long, I might just fast forward. Again, same settings. And I typically like to do viewport rectangle. It's super helpful because it allows me to reference the size when I scale things in Illustrator. Okay, great. This made 2D. So the reason why the make 2Ds are taking long is because you can see 72 seconds, like a minute and 12 seconds, is because I have all of these like layers on here. That's why it's taking so long. And I have a pretty good graphics card too. And so I'm just going to take this one and I'll just move it up here for now. And again, I need to emphasize, because this is a true length axonometric, we can actually export this to a scale if you ever wanted to. So like someone can take out a scale and measure this, like if you printed it out. So that's the beauty of this as well. But this doesn't matter for this session. I just want to show you, this option of representation in drawing. Okay, great. Now the last thing that I want to do is I actually want to look at this in render view real fast. I just want to see how it looks like. Okay, great. This actually looks fantastic in render view. I'm going to take the rendered view of this as well. But what I want to do is I want to change some of the options. Like you see the lines are a little too thick. Like I don't like the thickness of these lines here, And so what I want to do is if I go to my options panel, for example, and I go to the view, right, display modes, and I go to rendered, for example, and I go to objects and surfaces. So right now it has a scale, like the thickness is like 1.2. I can just do 1 instead, and maybe instead of like a black, it's like a dark gray, or that's a little too light, but like that. Do okay. So do you see now how that kind of lightens up a little bit? Because I am going to have make 2D lines over this, I could also just not have them at all, actually. That might be something better. Let me just see over here. Yeah, maybe we actually don't show the curvature and we allow the lines to do it instead. I really want to zoom in on these because these look fantastic. And maybe that's what I do. Maybe we'll do an option where it's like a zoomed in of this as well, and we can show you how that looks. So let me go back to options and then go back to here. And actually, let's just do 0 and then do OK. Oh, I'm sorry. That's an option. You can do it like that, or I can just go to render view and then show, we can uncheck show curves, and then we can uncheck show surface edges if we wanted to. And so right now, you see, it's not showing anything. There's no outline of anything. It's just this. I actually would recommend not doing that. But for this exercise, it's totally fine. But I would actually recommend not doing that in general, because you actually want those to help read if you ever took a screenshot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go here. I could also adjust some settings. Like if I went to my rendered view over here and I can do like draft quality final, and it'll still show up in here as well. So like I can go and turn my sun on, for example. And then my skylight intensity, I can drop this down, and you see how things get a little bit lighter and darker. Things will get much brighter because of this. This is just really helpful you can do a lot with this in just the basic render view. I'm not even talking about D5 render or Enscape, just pure straight up from Rhino. Like you can get away with a lot actually. And then sun settings, I'll do anywhere over here, and that's fine. And I'll just pick any time of the day and do okay. Beautiful. So I'm going to do view capture to file. And I want to make sure it's transparent background. And then you can just save it wherever you like. Again, make sure you save your files as PNG so that you get transparent background. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to export this make 2D as an Illustrator file. So I'll just select both of them at the same time. Just do export, and then I'll do Adobe Illustrator. Give it a name, Axon. And then I want to make sure order layers is checked. Again, you can have this to a scale if you want to do, but I'm just going to keep it a snapshot current view and do OK. And just an FYI, you want to make sure that this is as close to 0, 0 point as possible so that when you export to Illustrator, it will show up on the artboard. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and transition over to Adobe Illustrator, and then from there I'll show you, how we can represent this both in like a 2D drawing view and then in a rendered view. Okay, so here we are in Illustrator, and I have this on a very big artboard because I have this very big, drawing here. So I have this on like a 5 foot by 5 foot artboard. I feel like if you're going to show something like this, especially like in the academic setting, you really want to show it off and just, not shy away. So like, you should show this like on a 5 foot by like 2 foot art, sheet if you wanted to, and really zoom in onto it. So the first things I'm going to go ahead and just scale everything up, So just go ahead. I don't need these viewports anymore. I'm going to move this here. Um, Actually, these viewports, I'm going to hide them because these are great for proportions. So do Control-3 to hide. Put this here. I think this is a good size for now. And so we'll stick it here. Very good. And so obviously, as you can tell, everything is a thick line weight. So I'm just going to go ahead and give everything just a nice thin line weight at first. That's how I like to work. Just everything is super thin line weight. Things nice and thin. And then I'll go ahead and make everything just black. Or actually just I'll make everything an 80% for now. Like that. Very good. So we know this line, we have these lines here. These lines should be dashed. I actually like to do these lines in Illustrator. I don't like that I took them from Rhino, to be honest. Let me just Control G, view, group them, make a new layer, and then we'll say alignment here. We'll do 0.25. We'll make it dashed. We'll make it, I don't know. We're going to play around and see how it looks. That's good, I would say, for now. Very good. And I would actually move this line over here somewhere. Oops. Yeah, that's much better. You either want to move it, you don't want these lines to intersect. These dashed lines, let's make them, space them out a little bit more. Like that. And then we can do the same thing here. Again, the beauty, because this is just a straight line down, you can just do a straight line down like this, and then do I sample tool like this. Very good. And then that's gone. And then, I mean, we could technically take this line that we have here, which is going, I just like the window because it's a good guidance, but like you can technically take this one and have it go like here, that you see it's hitting all the edges right here. And then we can keep this one there. So like we can delete that one, for example, and then delete this one, for example. You have something like this, But again, I don't like how these intersect, but that's just a matter of preference. This one, I'm going to take it, and I'm going to actually duplicate it again, and then this one will make all dashed and like super light. We can make it like a close dash, like 2, and maybe we can make it like 50%. We'll come back to this and see how this looks. Maybe even lighter, so like maybe 40% and make the dashed 1 point. This is like, you have to play around with this to see what works best aesthetically. Like, see that starts to, I don't like that reading. We'll come back to this and see at the very end. Okay, so we have this here. Now we want to start giving things like hierarchy, right? So like, for example, I mean, everything is layered, by the way. So we can like start isolating things if we wanted to. Like if I select this here, I know for a fact that that's all the battens. You see, it's only going to select the battens. I mean, we can ignore these. Like I can go ahead and just take these and do Control-3 and hide them. Control-3, hide them. So if I go click on this, I know that's in the battens layer. So like that, that's the beauty of working very clean layers. You just have Now you have a very clean format. And so what you would want to do is go in and give each one a thick outline so that everything starts to pop and read on its own. Uh, and so I'll just give you an example. We could probably do this all at once. I just don't want there to be any like major complexity when I hatch things. So let me just give you an example of how I would do this. So like over here, I would take these and let me just duplicate it over here. Always duplicate. And then I don't need this line. We definitely don't need that line. And then I'll go here, right? And then I'll go here, make a rectangle around here like this, right? And then I would just select this and then do live paint over here, right? Select this like that, and then just just live paint it a color that like that, right? So we have something like this, right? And then if I do object live paint expand and then ungroup, right? Now I'm going to have, oops, this is what I want. Actually, this is really important. This is exactly what I want because now I can switch the fill like that, right? I don't need this. And this is going to give me the thick outlines of everything around it right away. So I can make this, that's 1 point right now. I can make that black. That's what I want. Let me just do Control X, make sure paste members layers is off, and then go here, just say, outline, do Control F to paste in front. So you see these are now giving me all the thick outlines of everything. So if I go back here, and I can do Control Y. Control Y is outline view. That gives me like a, there we go. I do Control Y again. So you see now how things have this thick outline around it. Everything has this thick outline around it. I mean, it might be a little too thick, so I can go ahead and change it to like, I don't know, 0.5, like that. You get this reading like this, which is really clean. And then we'll do the same thing here. So I can just I can use the lasso tool to select this. And then just duplicate it. And then do the exact same thing. I can also use Shape Builder, but Shape Builder, you just want to make sure your objects don't have like a complex geometry. So like if I go here and do Shape Builder, for example, I want to select it and then do Shape Builder, and then you want to click here. See, but the thing is that it's reading an opening somewhere, which I don't like. And so instead, let me just go ahead and live paint it. So you see when I live paint it, it's more forgiving with the gap openings, and you can adjust it, but I just don't want to think about that. So let me just go ahead here and just do K for live paint, fill that in, right? I can also fill this in like this, and then just do, again, object, live paint, expand, ungroup, oops, ungroup. I think I ended it, object, live paint, expand, ungroup. There we go. So if I take this, it's only going to give me the fills, right? And I can switch these around, switch the stroke to the fill and fill to the stroke like that. And then I don't need this anymore. And then I can take this, and then just press I to match it. And then let me just go over here and match that thickness like that. Do Control X, let me paste it in the outline like that. Beautiful. That will go like that, you see? And then we'll do the same for the bottom on this one as well. So if I went here, so let me go ahead and do the lasso tool and just select this. I'll press V, and then I'll just do Control C, and click here, Control V. Great. Have everything I need. Just do a little a little box around here. K for live paint. Beautiful. Let me switch it. Like that. Beautiful. This is exactly what I want. And then let me go into here as well. Fill those in like that. Beautiful. And so, I mean, this by itself can be a diagram, right? And so I'm going to go into here and do object, live paint, expand, ungroup, and then we have this, switch the fill and the stroke like that. Beautiful. This is, again, this is the outline. This is why I don't want to grab the silhouette from Make 2D because I don't need it. And then let's do Control X, paste it in front of on the outline view, move it over here, right? Like this. Oh, let me do Control Y because it's easier to align. Like that. And then again, I think it was like 0.5. And let me make it black. Control Y. Like that. You get this thick outline around here like this. You see? So we want to do the same thing to these as well. So I might just fast forward on here and then I'll come back and I'll show you, maybe the rendering overlay and the dash line overlay. Okay, so I went ahead and I added labels and I added rendering overlays and I added backgrounds. And so I'm going to just review quickly how I did these things. It's very easy to follow along. I also covered this in detail in other previous videos like the diagramming, but I'm going to show you again. So let me just turn off some things so we can look at it. So let me turn off the background and then let me turn off annotations for now. So from before, what you saw before, we did not have the rendering, right? So we just had the actual just two-dimensional line work with the thick outlines around it. And I also went ahead over here, if you can tell, I even went inside and made sure these were thick. And you saw the methods previously, right? Just live paint, and then you just expand, ungroup, and overlap it. And so you can just stop here if you wanted to, and for example, just have your annotations, right? And have a pure black and white line work diagram if you wanted to. That's what you like, So a note about annotations, like you see your annotations fills space. It helps fill space, and even the way you and I know for a fact I have typos, so ignore any typos you see. But like here, if I go to the character tab here, like I'm playing around with the tracking here. For example, you see, like my tracking is 300 here, and the tracking here is 200 for my subtitle, and so like your labels have actual formats to it. And if you guys like I can upload all of the annotations on here if you like that. Same thing with your dash lines. Like where you place your dash lines matters because you don't want to have too many intersections. If anything, you want to avoid intersections. So like here, I placed my dash line here to really hit these areas. But to be honest, I don't like what's happening here, but it's very little. It's not like it's too many intersections. It's very little. And I'll go and I'll relabel these later, but this is just for placeholder. And then again, my labels, they all align. They all have these alignments to it. You don't want too much visual clutter. You want it to be as equal as possible. Like this is stepping. Like I could have equally stepped these as well, but this is just a video. And if we go down here, same thing, black and white. If you just want it black and white, we can keep it very technical. These are my annotation labels. Same thing here to scale. And don't forget, this can be to a true scale because it's true length projection on here. And then, these are my dimension strings. There's so many different styles that you can do. I can zoom in on here, thick outline around here. So that's number one. Now I can do a rendering overlay. I have two options for my rendering overlay. I have a color and then I have a black and white. So in my color version, I go right here, rendering, right? I literally just unlock it, right? That's all it is. I gave it an opacity or a transparency of 30%, and I just put it on the very bottom underneath. That's all I did. So remember when I did the screen capture in Rhino, the view captured a file? This is what it is. I put it underneath and I get this, you see? And the same thing down here, you see? So with the rendering, without the rendering, with the rendering, without the rendering, and it's your choice. And again, this is the color version. I'm gonna show you a black and white version of the rendering. And then there's another component, like maybe you like it just like this, but let's say you want to add some color to it, right? I can do like a nice like background, like a yellow background to it, to soften it up if you wanted to. like this. You see, there's so many ways. Um, there's another thing you can do, but I'll show it to you in black and white. So on my so this is the black and white version over here. You see? But before I do it, let me actually copy the annotations from here. Let me just copy these annotations real fast. Let me just go here. Let me lock outline. Or back, lock that. Control C, go in here. And again, make sure paste members layers is on. Very good. Let's go in here, Control F. So this is my black and white. Let me turn off the background color. So you see here, I made the rendering black and white, okay? Let me show you what I did in Photoshop. Very simple settings on Photoshop. So on Photoshop, if I go here, on Photoshop, all I did is I added a brightness and contrast adjustment, brightness and contrast, and I really bumped up the brightness, okay? Really bumped up the brightness, and then hue and saturation, right? I just brought the saturation all the way down. Those are the only two adjustments I did. And then for the bigger Axonometric, exact same, they're literally the exact same settings. That's all I did on Photoshop. And then I made sure to save it as a PNG in Photoshop. That's it. And then I brought this, back into Illustrator over here. And let me click, it's locked. The opacity for the black and white version is much higher. It's 80%. So don't forget, on the color rendering version, it's much lower because the color is really strong. I only made it like 30%. You see? I'm sorry about that. There you go. So it's 30% on the color rendering version, and then on the black and white version, it's 80% because it's black and white. It's going to blend in a little bit more. I personally like the black and white a little more, but I don't mind the color. So that's it without any background color to it. Same thing down here. This is the black and white version, right, as well. You see? And I'm going to export these as final. I'll show it to you as a final. Now, background color, I'm going to turn that on. And so you get something like this with the background color. I like it like this, to be honest, on the black and white version with a background color. I think it looks nice. And again, it's going to look much better when I export it. Same thing up here, background color. And this could be any background color you like, but super light yellow, 3.9 yellow. I can do like magenta if you wanted to, make it more graphic. When you do things like magenta, it becomes way more graphic and less technical, I would say, like that. So it's a matter of preference. Okay, one last thing. I want to show you something super cool in Illustrator with your blending modes. Let me just undo. Let's say, for example, let me copy this. Let me paste it in the very front. Let me just get rid of the paste. If I do like Control F, right? Now this is pasted in the very front. If I go to like my effects, right? My transparency effects, if I go down here, if I change this to like hue or color, right? Either of these, hue or color, do you see like what it does now? It like gives it like this, it's taking the yellow from the background color and it's overlaying it and it gives you like this like monolithic. This is just if you like it like this, if that's just another thing to think about. So again, this is on the topmost layer. So it's basically covering the entire drawing. And then I add a transparency or effect to it and I give it a hue blend to it and it covers it up. But this only looks nice on the black and white mode. And then you can do things like this. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and export these as JPEGs, as either JPEGs or high quality PNGs, and I'll show you the very final results on here. Okay, so this is the black and white version of the exploded Axonometric without that special overlay. This is just the background color. And when I say black and white version, I mean like the rendering itself is black and white. And so if you can tell, see, everything is really sharp. The lines are very sharp on here. And then remember the dashed line, you see, it's not that prominent. I could have made it a little bit darker. This is a rasterized file, so it's going to rasterize a couple things, but this is how things look. I mean, you could make this more technical, right? Like we could add more dimensions on here if we wanted to, right? Like dimensions on everything to make things more technical. Like maybe this side's all dimension strings, maybe I might do that as like a final one, but I just want to show you how the final export looks. So it's very, very clean, Just want to zoom out a bit and zoom in. These are things like you want to zoom in. Like if there's a digital presentation, you definitely want to zoom in and just show how things come together, So it shows, all the layers, how all these things come together. I could have made some of these lines much darker. Like I should have extended this line all the way across. I think I forgot to over here. I might also export just a non-background version of this just to show you how this looks. So this is the color version of this. And so if I go in here, or the background, excuse me, this is the, excuse me, so this is the black and white rendered version of this with a colored background. Zoom out. That's what it looks. So this one will be the color rendered version. This is the color. I actually liked how the color contrasts with the background color. So again, I'm going to zoom in on here. Again, this is like the dashed line over that. Shows how all the things come together. Zoom out like this. And then let's look at the big axons. There you go. This is the big axon. This is the black and white rendering with the overlay over it. Again, labels. Labels super important. You can make this, give this both a technical feel and this nice graphic aesthetic feel to it. Everything's lined up. I mean, I should have lined this up here. Everything should be lined up. Once you add dimension streaks on here, it starts to give it this more technical feel to it. You could also just like number these and have like a very big key here if you want to, like in the detail magazine, where you can have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then you have this huge key over here if you want to like balance out the graphics. This is the color version right here. So this is the one without any colored background version, just white background. And then this is how it looks. Things read a little bit better. The dash lines read, things read more clear with no color background to it. Again, larger axon, no color background. This is the color rendering though. You can compare it if you want to. That's the comparison. Lots of typos. Ignore the typos. Then black and white version. This is the black and white version. When I say black and white, I mean the rendering itself is black and white with a white background. This is the black and white rendering. You compare it if you want to. So I hope you found this helpful. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them in the comments section below. If you like this video, please like and subscribe so we can help this channel grow. Please stay tuned because I am going to be uploading more videos. Thank you.